I hope you can all hear me. I have no means of telling whether you can hear me, but I do hope you can hear. You are very welcome to this webinar. We hope every one of you is well and staying safe. This webinar is one in a series organized by Lagos Business School. And the intention is to help people learn and cope in these very challenging times. We also have articles and write-ups that are available on our website that you may find useful. Well, technology has been quite erratic, but we hope that in spite of all of this, you will have a good learning experience. We've had a few technical hitches just before we started, and no one can guarantee that it will not come up again. If you're experiencing a challenge, you can maybe log out and log back in. And if for any reason any of us speaking gets logged out, just hang in there. We shall log back in and continue. Networks are very dodgy, and we seem to be challenged. Good news is that this will be recorded and it will be shared with all those who are ready for this webinar. If you look at the bottom of your page, you should see a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Please, we urge you to use it to log your answer, your questions, and Dr. Amma and I will endeavor to answer as many of them as time permits in the course of this webinar. We shall begin with a quick poll. And a poll will come up, and then please complete the poll, and then hopefully we can report the questions, the response back to you shortly. Okay, I don't know how many of you have completed it. Let's see whether, give it another minute, and then we will call it and see whether we have been able to gather some response. Okay, thank you very much. Quite interesting. How would you describe your overall anxiety level at this time? 4% very low, 12% low, 52% feel it's moderate, 23% say high, and 10% says very high. So the anxiety level working from home is about 1 in 3 saying it is high, and 52% saying it is moderate. So there is some anxiety working from home. When it comes to how would you describe how you are coping, 36% say fair, and 58% say good. That's very good news. It's good to know. These are very, very challenging times. And a poll like this means we are starting at a very good point, and we hope we can make some contribution as we go along in this webinar. Our objectives are this. If you think we have a silver bullet that will fix all the current concerns and anxieties, honestly, we don't. The good news, though, is you will see that you are not alone, as you have already seen, that a number of people are anxious. You will see that you are doing some things well, and maybe some things not so well. We all learn a few helpful things and possibilities to reflect on in the course of this webinar. What we hope to do is to create an understanding of the new structure of work, what is happening in the workplace for organizations and for individuals, to review tools to function in the new working arrangements, and hopefully you will learn about consequences of the new structure and what you could do in work and in other domains of life. This webinar is over 2 days. Today is day 1. The next day 2 will be on Friday, same time. So those of you who are registered now, if you haven't registered, that's fine. Join us at 2 o'clock on Friday for phase 2 of the webinar. Today, we shall be doing an overview of changes in work, in the organization of work and the individual work style. That's what we shall be looking at today. So we shall be putting all of this into context so that we can all connect with what it is that we are going through. Here's what's happening. We have a huge and unprecedented disruption in our lives in a very, very compressed time. It is global and it's affecting every nation, and the very high and mighty are not exempt. It has led to unprecedented, drastic and restrictive proclamations by governments and by local governments all over the place. Now, this is the interesting thing. It's happening in the full view of everybody, thanks to media and hyperactive social media and the fertile minds of people. Everybody has something to say. We are bombarded on social media. Many of us have seen pictures, very eerie pictures of videos of empty streets, places of worship. Who would have thought? It's not something that I certainly didn't think that it is possible in this day and era to see some of the things we are seeing. And what's happening, we are having to make significant adjustments and changes in almost every aspect of our personal lives and our work life, all within this very compressed time frame. There are changes in work pattern you are experiencing, adjustments to home work domain boundaries. The balance between work and home is getting rather blurred. Changes in the needs of our customers and clients, and these are placing new demands on what we do and how we deliver to them. We're having to adapt to the ways our suppliers are having to deliver to us. And this uncertainty is going to go on, and we do not know for how long. These are some of the things that are driving our stress levels and anxiety. People are very anxious and stressed. Yes, just picked this up recently. A schools stay closed much longer, parents are going to invent the vaccine before scientists. Very stressed parents, children at home, getting used to one another, work life. Lots of structure and routine. Before you wake up every morning, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, you knew exactly how your day was going to be, got into a long commute or a short commute. And many of us, because we can't get to work to be what we have always find ourselves to be. Us around at home, and from what I hear, awkward conversations from time to time will happen. Now, people are genuinely afraid. If I have been non-essential and I have been at home and nobody has been talking to me, do I still have a job? Does that mean I could be rationalized out? What is likely to happen? These are significant sources of concern to people. That's why people are anxious and stressed. Then, of course, there's what I call the tyranny of social media, which is real. We need to try to lock down, but we are not able to lock out all the things that we are being told. Everybody is an expert on what nobody really, really understands. And like I said, we are working from home. There are obvious technical challenges, network issues, like we seem to be having from time to time. And many of us are actually challenged in terms of how to use the meeting platforms. But frankly, that's just a small part of the challenge that we have. For those of us who are working from home and those who are expecting other people to work from home, there are a few things that we must note. People's home circumstances are different, and we affect them differently from how it is at work. At work, people woke up, came to the office, and all they were doing was being in the office and delivering work. Working from home is a completely different thing, and you cannot read how it's affecting others from the way it's affecting you. Depends on where people live. For some, they have the luxury of an office, a home office. Some don't, and yet they have to work from home. So if you are calling a meeting and people are at home and you have to dial into meetings, I'd like you to think about it, that people are allowing you into their personal space, into their home. Respect is called for beyond what typically we handle in the office. The order of hierarchy might have altered. In the office, you are the boss. Nobody could question that, but at home, there might be a few other bosses. From the little child who wants daddy's attention, to the wife who wants certain things done. Whatever it is, the dynamics are very, very different from the office, and these are sources of stress. This do make a number of us vulnerable and will be self-evident when you have virtual team meetings. It's been said of very senior executives and even managers that are on calls, and a little child runs in, daddy, 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 and he jumps on daddy's feet, and you're like, well, that's not very professional. What can you do? I mean, he's home. The child wants to play. Oh, no, no, I'm working. I says, no, daddy, you're not working. I can see you. This is not how you used to work. So all of these things may appear funny and trivial, but honestly, they are all playing into how this whole thing is affecting us. we need to exercise a lot more care when it comes to scheduling meetings. It may be more difficult for others, for some and others, when you dial in family considerations and certain tasks that individuals have to perform now that they are home. Actually, I see it as sometimes looking at it as people working from a different time zone. You won't call a person who is working in a different time zone without a consideration for how it is that that person is likely, what the black person is likely to be doing at that time. So it's very important in scheduling these meetings to be sure that we are connecting with each other and sharing and making sure that it is convenient for everybody whenever it is that we are deciding to hold such meetings. There's another thing that we should take careful note of. Times like this heighten anxieties about pre-existing conditions. Here's what I mean. Work relationships that have not been excellent in the past may have a way of beginning to look a little bit more dodgy. You have a subordinate that was always afraid of you, doesn't know, is not quite sure of his relationship. Now, he's having to walk a distance from home. You don't even get to see him now. These are all going to begin to affect. There are performance issues. What were you calling performance before? I just found out recently, somebody was talking, I was like, he said, how much do I continue to pay? Do I have to continue to pay my people the same amount now that they are working from home? And honestly, that begs a different question. What were you paying them for before? Were you paying them for coming to work? Because that is the only reason it's occurring to you that I don't have to pay them as much now that they are not coming to work. Because if they are still delivering, the question does not arise. But then it turns out that quite a number of people actually, the only way they were measuring performance was the guy showing up in the office. It was just being present. So you can see that this thing goes very, very deep. It has health implications and career issues implications. Those are the things that are creating difficulties and stress. A few other things that I want us to note. We have to learn to be disciplined, but we are not always all very disciplined when it comes to, now that we are home, you probably watch television more, probably get out of bed later than you used to. All of these things are going to affect your routines and may begin to impact on your performance. And here's another one. Face-to-face conversations are very different from telephone conversations, which is, I can see you now, but hopefully you can see me. It's very different. If it's not a video conference, if it's just a telephone call. You hear what the people are saying, but you lose the meaning from their body language. It's often said that 7% of what you say, the meaning you convey, is in your verbal, is in the verbal content of what you say. The tone with which you say it carries 38%. That means 45% maybe you can get on a telephone conversation, but you lose 55% of it in terms of body language. And that's a significant part. So you're talking to somebody, you're not getting the full complement of the meaning of what the person is saying. So this makes conversations on telephones prone to significant misunderstandings. And if there have been issues, work-related issues before, things like this could heighten it. We must be mindful of the tone on our emails now. You know why? I mean, simple things like you send an email, quick email to somebody. If you had seen him in the morning when he walked into the office, there was a warm Akin, how are you, good morning, this and that, or he's next door to you, you can walk into his office. It's very different if the person is working at home and then he just gets this sharp email from you. He hasn't seen you in weeks. It could convey a completely different meaning. So these are things, little things that we need to be mindful of. We are not working in the same office anymore. People are working from home, and that is very, very different. Working routines may change. People who are used to responding to emails instantly, it may be taking longer. And some people work late into the night and they're sending emails. It doesn't mean that they want you to respond to the email at 2 a.m. Maybe that's when they work best. But then you thinking, you get something on your phone. Oh, my boss is sending me an email at midnight. Maybe that's when he chose to send it, but I don't think it requires that you should respond at that time. So we need to be mindful of behaviors of people that are going to be very different that they are working from home. One-on-one telephone calls will continue to be crucial, but we must not let it take the place of open discussions among team members. Because what can very quickly happen is I have a conversation with you, but I didn't have the same conversation with 3 other members of the team. You know what they don't know, and that begins to create issues in the team. How can we make sure that whatever conversations we are having, we're sharing it, we're going around, we're talking to everybody that needs to know? It's going to be very, very key. Now, having said this, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take a few minutes and just reflect on what is happening to you now that you're working from home. There are some of the things that I have said that will have gained traction with you. See how that is impacting you. How's working from home affecting you? Write them down, get a notebook. You might think it's superfluous, but honestly, you will find out as we go along. It's not point. Because the more you're able to relate to how you are feeling, the more you're going to be able to cope and address how you are feeling. For now, we know we are stressed, we know we are feeling weird, but what exactly is happening, we may not fully know it. So it's important to dive in some granularity. Answer some of these questions. How's working from home affecting me really? What have I been doing to address them? Maybe you've not been doing much. And so it's just been eating and raining on you. What is working? What is not working? Take a few minutes and make a note of this. I'll give you a few minutes, probably about 5 minutes. Just think very deeply about it. And then when we get back, I'll then begin to take a number of these things in bits and pieces and hopefully share with you an approach that you can adapt to begin to ride, to begin to moderate the level of anger that you feel now. I'll be expecting your questions. If you have questions, you can begin to post them. I hope you can all find the Q&A button and you are able to log in your question. If you have come in, you see how we address the between Oke and I, Dr. Ama and I, as we go along. I just quickly talk to a few of the questions that have come up. How to handle work on difficult tasks all alone with constant distractions from home. Like I said, there are no simple answers. It depends on the context of home. It depends on where those distractions are coming from. Of course, I accept that some things are going to be more difficult to manage than others. But the most important thing I always say, try and develop a routine. But before you can even do that, try and contract with the people at home. Between so and so, I'd like to be able to have this time to do a number of things so that you can have that time to yourself so that the distraction is minimal. But as soon as you're done, also create time because they need you. Now that they are home too, they need your attention as much as you are going to need theirs from time to time. You need colleagues. You need to get information from colleagues. It's different now from just getting up and walking around the corner and asking, oh boy, where is so and so? How did you do this last time? You need to get on the phone. So those are some of the things that each person will have to work out what it is that works for the person. We will, by the end of today, learn a few more things that I hope will be very useful. And particularly tomorrow, we'll also be able to address some of these questions. I'm sorry, not tomorrow, Friday, when we begin to look at tools of working at home and managing these things. Thank you very much. We will continue, keep the questions coming, and we'll see how best we can answer many of them. I want to make progress. I want to look at dealing with anxiety. Dealing with anxiety. You see, our character flaws tend to come out more when we are under pressure, when we're going through very difficult times like we are going through now. So under pressure, we feel very vulnerable. Interesting thing is that it's not just under pressure that we feel vulnerable. We also do when we are feeling on top of our game and feeling very, very successful. That's when it is very easy to just relax and rest on your oars. And you find out that you are vulnerable at that time too. So vulnerability is not just a question of when things are hard, when things are even good, when you are happening. Honestly, you probably are more vulnerable than at a time such as this. Anxiety has its has its origin in fear. You're afraid of something. Something will happen. Something will not go wrong. But anxiety is not necessarily a bad thing. It is something we are equipped with to provide early warning. It's like an early warning sign. If there is hunger, is a warning sign that you need to feed yourself. If you touch fire, it burns you. It's a warning that you quickly take your hands off there, otherwise your hand will roast. Imagine if we didn't feel something hot, we would have ruined our fingers. Actually, unfortunately, there are people who do not have that sensation, and it could be very damaging. So anxiety is not necessarily a bad thing. It is what we are equipped with. The challenge is, are we using anxiety, or are we allowing anxiety to use us? Whatever happens when there is anxiety, it manifests in behavior. Behavior is all that we see. The behavior you see is the tip of the iceberg. And unfortunately, that's all you see. But it is underpinned by our attitude. We don't see attitude. We see a behavior and we infer from it. Our attitude is our enduring emotional construct, and it includes our feelings, our fears, and our beliefs. We don't see these things. We don't see feelings. We don't see values. We don't see beliefs of people. Certainly don't see attitude, but what we see is behavior from which we infer many of these things. So like it's often said, the tip of the iceberg that you see is just 10% of the total mass. Under it is attitude, and that is what determines what you see on top. When you see an iceberg moving, it is not the wind that is pushing the 10% on top, it is the sea currents, what's under, that is causing the movement of what you are seeing on top. So if we need to address behavior in periods of anxiety or in periods of when we are feeling hip and feeling good, if we need to begin to use our emotions and not allow them to use us, we will need to dig deeper, because that's where we can influence our behavior. Even the skills and knowledge of people, you don't see skills and knowledge. You don't see my skills, you don't see my knowledge. You see these in the behaviors of people. When the person behaves appropriately, we say, well, yeah, the person is skilled, he knows what he's doing, he knows what he's saying. It's what you see. But I tell you one thing, your attitude determines even how you use your knowledge and your skills. My favorite example is you're driving along the road. You see all those difficult drivers that are making your life interesting on the highway. The question is, what do you think is the problem? I assure you, it is not a lack of skill. It's not a lack of knowledge. I always say, they are knowledgeable, they know what they are doing. When they see LASMA, they know what they are doing is not right. And believe me, they are very skilled, because learners will not drive the way those guys drive. What is driving their behavior is their attitude. And they are using their skills and knowledge as a weapon on the highway. It's a matter of attitude. And that is where we need to begin to address behavior. So when you are feeling an emotion, what do? You've just received an email from a colleague, and it's like, my God, and you're feeling emotional, you're feeling angry, you're probably feeling frustrated. He's rude. I always knew he doesn't respect me. He or she thinks because blah, 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 and the mind begins to roll. And then you tell yourself, I'm going to show her. I'm going to deal with him. I'm just going to ignore him. I'm going to do that. Where's all of this coming from? we are having a conversation with ourselves. And it has its origin in our attitude, our beliefs, our values, our feelings. Our feelings have been hurt. This person shouldn't have done that. Why did he do that to me? This is what is shaping our behavior. It is the conversation we are having with ourselves. So think about it. In these very challenging times, what emotions are you prone to? What conversations are you having with yourself? It's going to be very, very important. We're having conversations with ourselves. Are we aware of what those conversations are? Because that's the first place to start if you're going to deal with the anxiety of behavior. When anxiety comes calling, as it is doing now. Here's the good news. We have the power to script and edit that conversation. You can interrupt that conversation. You can edit it. In fact, you can rewrite, you can rescript it. That's the power we have. That is the difference between merely reacting to things and responding. We react when we just do things because emotion pushed us to do that. And that's when they ask, oh, but why are you doing this? But did you see what he has just done? He did this, he did this. So he made me do what I did. That's reacting. Responding is being in control of the conversation you are having with yourself. And that's going to be a very critical skill and a very critical thing to learn to do in these very challenging times. And even when we get back to work, if we ever get back to normal work, ever again, I don't know. Nobody makes you do anything. Only what you are telling yourself in your conversation makes you do the things you do. And very often I say this in school when I'm teaching. I say, oh, no, come on, I can't. No, you can't. And he says, well, I can. I say, how do you? He says, I put a gun to your head and I tell you to jump. And I say, well, yes, okay, yeah. When you put a gun to my head and tell me to jump, what do you think I'm telling myself? I'm telling myself, I better jump before this lunatic blows off my head, right? And you think you're in control? No. The thing that determines my behavior is what I've just told myself. So many of us go away thinking that it is what we said. It's a very humbling thing to know that people don't do what you tell them. People do what they tell themselves. It's very humbling, but it is the truth. So if you're talking to somebody, you just said, John, I want you to do X, Y, Z. He ignores you. What do? You increase the volume. John, I said you should do this. And he's still ignoring you. What do? You increase your volume more. And then John suddenly says, this guy is beginning to make noise. He's going to draw the neighbors here. He's mad. And he does what you want him to do. And you are thinking it is because you shouted. No. It is because he has not told him. It comes with a dose of but does not allow our emotions to take control. And that is very important. So I'm going to talk about how we build resilience in these very difficult times. To build resilience, to be in control of our emotions, has a number of components, and I'm going to recommend a set of steps, which I call RIDE. It starts with realizing your reality. R, realize your reality. So the first thing to address is, okay, I am afraid, but we must be sure we understand what it is we are afraid of, which is why I told you the other time, make a note of what you are going through now. And then ask yourself, why am I afraid of these things? You probably tell yourself, okay, I'm afraid. Why? Death could be what is the messenger bringing to you? But at the same time, do not let the messenger control you. That's the message. You can be harmed by the action of a road user. Maybe you're driving and somebody just drove roughly and cuts you off. And you lose your cool, you're angry. Why are you angry? Well, I can be harmed. You are right. You can be harmed. And then the conversation starts. It starts by, what if this guy killed me? What if this guy did this? What if this happened? But well, it hasn't happened. It didn't happen. So what do you need to do? Maybe the first thing that, if you interrogate emotions, is that, well, I'm not in control of what they do. There are mad people on the road. So what do I have to do? Take more responsibility. Otherwise, the only option often to you is to fight it. You drive rough, he drives rough, and there's an accident. And that's not quite what you want. If you take hold of your conversation you are having, you know, did you see what that guy just did? It's because he's driving a bigger car. No, it's those are the reasons we need to be very, very careful. Another thing, do not feel entitled. It is very easy to feel entitled. How dare he? Does he know who I am? Well, apparently he doesn't. When you feel entitled, it is very, very easy to lose your resilience. I always say, somebody says, oh, he's very rude. He was rude to me. Well, yes, people are rude to people. But some of us think we are beyond people that people can be rude to. It's a sense of entitlement. The only control you have is how you are going to respond to a rude person. So the first thing that we need to address is a sense of entitlement. Not feeling entitled is not a very easy thing. It can be very painful. It entails pulling down all the facades that we have built around ourselves as a defensive covering. That's why somebody says, do you know who I am? Many of such statements comes from a position of vulnerability, a position of, I'm feeling very vulnerable, a feeling of lack of self-confidence. I need to shout so that this guy doesn't get the better of me. So you build a facade around yourself. And those are the kind of things that you need to address if you are not to feel entitled. Who have you been telling yourself you are that you're not? Those are things that you need to address. You need to interrupt your conversation and reconsider your conversation and script a new conversation. As you do this, track your emotions. That's what I mean by realize R as the first thing you do. Like I said, don't ignore your emotions. Track them and use them. If you track your emotions, there are basically three primary emotions. Well, depending on what book you read, psychologists never agree on anything anyway, so take your pick. But one that I subscribe to is that there are three primary emotions: fear, anger, and allure. These are spontaneous. They are called primary emotions because they go away when the conditions that triggers them ceases. A primary emotion is something was going to hit you, something is going to happen to you, and you see it and you are afraid instantly. But as soon as the risk is off, then the emotion should go away. Very often they don't. Each of these primary emotions triggers what we call the secondary emotion. The secondary emotions trigger tertiary emotions. Fear will trigger things like apprehension, anxiety, and all of that. Anger will trigger emotions like vengefulness, hurt. Allure will trigger affection and lust, and all of that, on and on. These linger beyond the primary emotions that triggered them. So long after the primary emotions have gone, because the thing that created them has gone, these secondary and tertiary emotions remain. And that is what we struggle with. They are the problem. And they grow only because they are fed. How do we feed them? The conversations we have. They are fed by the stories we stream. Some of these stories we stream into our minds. It is because I didn't greet him yesterday that he did this. It is because this. It is because that. So he's now going to do this. And you know, you're on a journey. Now, what happened has happened and it's probably gone. Like I said, you can always edit the stories. Said somebody, well, I cannot do ABC. And I said, well, maybe it's not that you cannot do, you choose not to. I said, why? If it is something that any human being has done, of course you can do it. I cannot climb Kilimanjaro. I bet you can. You probably chose you will not. You have more power than you very often realize. That guy, I can never greet him again. No, you choose never to greet him again. You can. The question to ask is, when you say I cannot, change the question to I choose not to, and answer the question, why did you choose not to? Why do you choose not to climb Kilimanjaro? Why do you choose not to greet him? And suddenly you find out that, frankly, if you put it this way, you are a lot more empowered, because by answering those questions, why you have chosen to do A, B, C, D, why you have chosen not to do A, B, C, D, you might just begin to feel empowered that, come to think of it, I can actually do it. I just need to do this, I just need to do this, I just need to do this, and then I'll get it done. So learn to address the emotion of fear that you cannot do something by telling yourself, if it is something others can do, I can do it too. I just choose not to do it. And that might be a very valid conclusion to arrive at. I choose not to climb Kilimanjaro. That's a very valid position to take. But it is an empowered position because you chose not to do it, not a victim of the fact that you cannot. And this is one thing about emotions that makes it very, very difficult. They cannot be scheduled and they cannot be rescheduled. You cannot say, wait, I will wait till 4 o'clock this evening before I get angry. You will be angry. Or I cannot say, let me reschedule this anger until so and so. When it happens, it happens. And that is what makes us extremely vulnerable. That is when we need to be on top of our games and learn how to use our emotions and not allow them to use us. Know yourself and accept responsibility for who you are. Because who you are has consequence. Your strength, your vulnerabilities, the fact that you use your cool all the time, that's who you are. But it has consequences. There are people who have to deal with those. And the only way you can build your character is in real relationships. You do not learn these things by reading them in books, unfortunately. You learn them in real life situations. Somebody says, you just offended me. Find out, what did I do? Could I have done it differently? You're always a variable in the calculus of that relationship. You cannot direct and control what others are doing. The only thing you have control over is what you are doing. So that's right. We have looked at realizing your reality. The next thing to look at is interrogate your reality. Explore the maze. Explore the maze. Stephen Covey described something which he called the zone of full control. It says there's a zone where you have full control. And then there is a zone of disabling discomfort where you are not in control. And this is where you are feeling extremely anxious. The reason we are feeling anxious is that we are not in control. We don't know when this thing will end. We don't know whether we have it. We don't know who has it. We don't know how we can catch it. We are not in control. So it's very disabling. And these are the behaviors that come when we are feeling disabled or this disabling discomfort. You either become passive, you become resistant, you withdraw, you are frustrated, you mistrust others, or you blame. I call all of these victim behaviors because you have become a victim of that situation. But mercifully, according to Covey, it doesn't have to be either or. It's not a question of I'm in full control or I'm not in full control. He says there is a zone of influence. So you may not be able to control the thing. You may not be able to control what is happening, but you have an influence over what is happening. And that's where your resilience begins to come. And this is a place of discomfort, but it's a creative discomfort because you would have interrogating your reality. You are redefining, you are reconstructing your conversation. and you are redefining what you will do and what you will not do, you're taking control. It can kill me, but it has not killed all others. Some, maybe yes, it has killed them, but it has not killed you. What can I do to address it? If you know what to do to address it, then just get on. I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this. If there's nothing you can do to address it, well, so it will happen. So the next question will be, okay, so if that thing happens, who will be affected? What will be the consequence? Now, that is something you can address. How can I make the impact less on this? How can I do this? How can I do this? How can I do this? Because that's the only one you can influence. Because if it's going to happen, it has already happened. Begin to take measures, because now you have seen that it's a possibility, it could happen. You develop what I call the preparedness plan. What have you been telling yourself you cannot do that is actually what you have chosen not to do? This is the time to plug it in and explore it. I've explained that earlier. As you do this, you might find out that fresh anxieties arise. Again, quickly interrupt and edit your conversation. As soon as you notice, as you explore this, a fresh anxiety is popping up, that is the time to quickly interrupt that conversation again, and you edit your conversation, and you start all over again. It's an iterative process. And ask yourself, what happens if I let go these feelings? Yeah, okay. So I'm afraid. Without dismantling the limits they have placed on you, you cannot step out into a bigger self. Ask yourself, what is good about this situation? You can be sure. You know where you wrote all your anxieties and resilience and the things that are happening that are causing you anxiety that you did before. Spend 2 minutes thinking about it again. What is good about it? I want you to spend time looking at that. What are you learning that others might not have had the opportunity to learn? The situation you are going through now is hitting you. What is it teaching you that somebody who has been, in quotes, lucky and has not had to go through the pain you are going through now? What is it that you have learned that that person hasn't learned? Because there's value in it. It's an asset. So I'd just like you to take a few minutes, 5 minutes. What can you find in the current situation that you are building? What strength are you finding out that you have that you didn't know you had? Take a few minutes on that. A couple of minutes. And then we'll go from there. I'll give you a few more minutes. Right, let's carry on. have no means of getting feedback, but I hope you are learning. I hope it's making sense to you. I talked about responding and not reacting. For you to be able to do this, you need a compass, what I call an emotional intelligence compass, so that you can maintain a direction. It's called purpose. You need to define your purpose. You need to establish. In any relationship, frankly, there's a purpose. Have you defined yours? I'm not talking about your job description in the workplace. What is my purpose in this relationship between me and my boss, between me and this subordinate, between me and this peer? And if it's a good purpose, it will always be about the other person. It's about making a contribution. You need to establish what your purpose is. Spend time, look at it. Even in other relationships, father-son relationship, husband-wife relationship, there's a purpose. What's your purpose in that? If you are clear about it, then you work to that purpose, and then you cannot be derailed. Because when you are clear about your purpose, then it is easy. It is not easy for you to be knocked off that purpose. Because here is what happens. We eventually abuse anything we do not know the purpose of. And that is including our role in relationships. It is the reason bosses abuse their roles, subordinates abuse their roles, people in relationships abuse their roles. It's as simple as not understanding the purpose of their roles in the first place. And the easiest way to abuse your role in a relationship is to do things just because you can. When you do things just because you can, you are likely to have abused your power. The power you have, whether as a subordinate, and believe it or not, subordinates do have a lot of power than many managers are willing to acknowledge. Even your driver has a power. Your steward has power. All of these powers exist. The easiest way to abuse your power is to do things just because you can. The only reason to do anything must be that and the achievement of your purpose. Let what you do be informed by your purpose. That way you can maintain a true north. That way every wind of emotion does not knock you out. It starts with being very clear about your purpose. Establishing your purpose is key to stabilizing relationships. It is always about others, and it's always bigger than yourself. It is the reason we are courageous, because courage is actually fear. Courage is the fear of what will happen if I don't do something. If you know your purpose and you know what the consequence of not acting is, the fear of that is what leads to you to do certain things that people call courage. It is not that those who are courageous have no fear. It's a function of what do they fear. The fear of inaction is what drives courage. We've talked about right. We've talked about realizing your reality. We've talked about interrogating that reality. 2 more steps and we'll be done. The third one is design. Design. What outcome do you want?
Good afternoon, all. Kindly bear with us. Akin's internet went off. He's trying to get back. So kindly bear with us. We'll soon get back. Okay, participants, while Akin is coming back, let me try and take few of the questions here and see what we can make out of them. One of the questions is, the challenge really is waking up early and keeping to my to-do list. How do I solve this? This is one of the big dangers in remote work. While you are in the office, it's assumed that your supervisor is before you. You see him, so you work. But when you are at home, you are in full control of your time, as usual, and you have to manage that time. The first thing is you must be disciplined, realizing that there is a deadline that you are given and you must achieve this deadline. So if you are not disciplined, you have a to-do list, you are not disciplined, you will end up not achieving anything because you are the boss of your time, you use it. So it is very necessary that you become disciplined. Once you have a to-do list, make sure that you follow those to-do lists religiously because your time is under your control and you are to handle it. The way I have been handling mine is I wake up early to go to work when we're working in the office. Even now, I still try to wake up early so that I maintain that rhythm that I know how to do. If you break it, chances are what is happening to you will continue to happen. But we shall discuss this in more details on Friday. I think Akin is back, so Akin, please continue. Unmute yourself, Akin. You are muted, unmute, and then continue.
Very sincere apologies if you can hear me. I'm trying to get back. I should be with you very shortly. Mercifully, I did warn that technology was going to be a challenge. And when I said it, I was saying, if you got knocked out, call back. And unfortunately, I'm the one that got knocked out. So I'm glad I'm back. And I can still see you guys are on the line. Thank you very much for that. So we're going to talk about design. What outcome do you want? Let your purpose give you strength. Be informed by your purpose. It should give you enough enthusiasm and strength to pursue it. Find courage, like I said. Courage comes from the fear of what will happen if I do not pursue this purpose. What resources do you have? The ones you knew and the ones you now have. Begin to put them together. Treasure what you have and be thankful. That's why I asked you to do that little exercise. What's good about this situation? And then finally, enable yourself. Energize and empower yourself to step out. Say to yourself, I can now do A, B, C, D. Not I cannot. Believe in who you are, because now you know who you are. So whether you like it or not, this whole experience has brought out of you a lot that you probably didn't know you have. Nurture those strengths. Value the lessons that you have learned on your way to getting here, including the failures that success might not have allowed you to learn. Because we learn more from our failures than we do from our successes. If you can put all of that together, you got the formula to ride. Realize your reality, interrogate your reality, design your desired reality, and enable yourself. And this, you have to do again and again and again. It might look very complicated, but frankly, it is not. It's like reading a manual to operate your phone. It looks very complicated because it's the whole whatever, how do I go through all of this? But it becomes very intuitive the more you practice this and find value in it. So ladies and gentlemen, that's right. That's our approach to effectively ride our emotions. And I hope this puts you in a very good place, and look forward to Friday. But before you go, I would like us to do a final poll. If we could have the poll again, please. And then I'll bring this, I will then, sorry, I cannot bring it to a close. Look at a few questions and then bring it to a close. Can we have a poll, please? Okay, can we call the poll now? Good. I think we've made significant progress. 61% of people think they are in a good position, and 25 think they are in excellent position to ride their anxiety now. I couldn't have asked for more. Those who think it's poor and fair, I'll try and see if we can answer some of the questions, but I make this commitment to you. As many of you, you have our emails. I'm quite happy to take your emails and take some of those questions that you might have concerns about. These are the things we do at Lagos Business School, just top of some of those things. And each of the things I've talked about now are things we explore from time to time. So thank you very much. I'll look at a few of the questions, okay? Dr. Ama and I will see. Okay, you can jump in anytime if you find a question that you want to address. There's a question that just hit me now. How can one like me that just finished setting up a factory with loan work from home to meet up with this situation? That's a serious situation. I accept. It is, and you have my sincere sympathy. However, the first place to start is you can't do anything about it. Worrying about it is not going to help. You need a clear head to do what it is that you need to begin to do. The first question is, what can you do now? Who are my loan officers? Is this the time to schedule a conversation with them? Because everybody knows what is happening. You probably have recruited employees and they were to start and they now can't start. So what do? You have two problems. You may not be in the position to continue to pay them. You might not have enough resources to get them together, have a conversation. The quality of that conversation is going to help. So ignore them and just say, well, you can see this and this. Will not be a very advisable thing to do, because I can imagine how much effort you make in getting the right kind of people. And if they are really good people, as soon as this thing is over, they will find other jobs. Some of them you have probably trained. You have already made significant investment in them. It's not just the factory. So the thing to do now is being very clear about what you can do nothing about. And then decide, what is it I can do something about? And put an action plan in place. Talking to your funders, your shareholders, the people who provided the funds, and pulling brains together. I always say, at a time like this, you're very focused on one thing, but there are other people who might have solutions that might be tangential to it, but might be profound. The more brains you can network with now will be very helpful. Some of them will be those who provided you funds, those who loaned you money, the people you're going to work with, suppliers that you have, and the customers you had already worked on. Can't think of any other question. Okay, did you see any question?
Yes, some of them are things we're going to discuss on Friday.
Okay.
I have sent a message that we shall be discussing it on Friday.
Somebody is saying you should show the slide on right. So the questions are moving so some are comments. Interrogating your reality makes so much sense. Thank you. How can one like me? Oh yeah, I've looked at that. The power is a major issue. I agree. But power has always been an issue. We've always known. The situation has just been aggravated. In fact, you will find out that what we are going through now has just exposed things that have always been there, that we have always worked our ways around. And now we have no workarounds. That's why it is so difficult. But I always say, whatever you are doing now that is working, that seems to be working, lock them down. Maybe that's the thing to do. That thing about, oh, this is how to relate, this is how to do this, may not come again. I have a friend, I gave an example in another webinar of a friend who has a farm as far away in Ogun State, near Abeokuta, and he lives on the Lekki corridor. And he was always going to the farm, very frequently before all of this happened, because he needed to be there to supervise his farm and see how things are going. But the good thing is that he had enough foresight to have developed a very good residential place for his workers to be in, because he knew that if he made them comfortable, he would get more out of them. So built a good residential facility for them. Didn't manage things at all. Now see what's happening. The people are now having to stay there much longer than you would have imagined. But what's even more, for the past 4 weeks, he has not been able to go to the farm because of the lockdown. And you know what? How does he manage to see what they are doing? He got them handheld devices to record their respective plots and share it with him on an everyday basis on WhatsApp. And so from farm to handheld devices, he's able to have conversations with them as if he was there. I'm sure when all of this is over, he's not in a hurry to now begin to make those long commutes anymore. He can invest, he can continue to do this and invest the time he saved in more value-adding endeavors that will grow his enterprise better than plugging himself on the way to the farm every day. So whatever you are doing now, if you are a single self-employed person, think about the solution. Think about the things you couldn't do before that you suddenly find out, oh, well, this is a solution. Why don't you structure it and make it more robust? And that is the thing to do. That's how to build resilience for your organization. And if there are things that you are wishing, oh, I wish I can do this, I wish I can do this. Now is the time to stop wishing. Now is the time to begin to think, what is stopping me? What are the obstacles? And begin to do something about those. Like Oke said, we will look at more of this when we meet on Friday. I'll just take one more question. What are the major parameters for performance measurement in working from home setting? Honestly, it is not about working from home setting. What performance criteria were you using? What was performance for you? Many of us have never really answered this question. It was not just because the guy comes to the office, because you can see him, he comes in at 8 and he leaves at 5. If that's what you call performance, of course now you can't measure that. But what was his delivery? What were you expecting him to deliver? If you haven't thought about it, now is the time to think about it. What output am I expecting? And how do I measure it? And it depends on the kind of business you are in. I'm not able to say what the performance parameters are, because it's going to depend on what you do. I'm just giving you an example of somebody who gets the people to take photographs of their plots in the farm, and he looks at it. That's one. I don't know what your business is, but if we know, we might be able to be more helpful. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you very much for your patience and your endurance, even given the challenges we had. And hope we meet again soon, if not online, at Lagos Business School, hopefully, and we are looking forward to having you on Friday and subsequently at the Lagos Business School. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Bye.